we're going towards this, how do you make sure that laws benefit everybody or are fair to everybody? The truth is, they're not always fair. And what is put into law, definitely, like you talk about an economic package, you can't benefit everybody. And you can't fault somebody for trying to make something broadly beneficial because it leaves out certain groups. It's always going to be that way. You know, my problem with politics is all this mundane bullshit that people get tied up in that has absolutely no bearing on where we're headed. The truth is this, like the financial condition we're in is solely the problem because we have something called the US Treasury that prints our money for us that doesn't belong to our government. We owe an immediate interest on money that's printed for us now. So we're in this ever evolving debt crisis. Why? Because we are not in charge of our money. There is no other economic problem. Nobody's addressing that. Why? Because the people in power won't allow that to even be an issue long enough for it to be considered.
It benefits them, that's why.
This is back to what I was saying earlier when I said there is no quote-unquote people, there's no collective, there's no we. It is a specific group of people.
Specific individuals.
Specific individuals.
Made individual votes.
That did this thing. There are specific.
Absolutely.
There might be a large number of specific individuals.
But they're all individuals.
But they're all individuals. So when a cop holds a gun to your head and says, "Get on the ground," he is holding a gun to your head and telling you to get on
Society
the ground.
is
Society
not.
is
The
not.
law is not.
The
He
law
is.
is. There is no law.
Okay, and why does that cop do that?
The cop does that because somebody is paying him to do it.
Well,
No.
He's
That's
probably done
no.
it 'cause
Why
he
is that
flips
police
switches.
officer doing that when he pulls a gun and he holds it to your head and he says, "Get on the ground"? You weren't just walking along, with your dog. What were you doing to create that scenario?
The answer is there's no one answer because every individual makes decisions for a million different reasons. The cop may be holding a gun to your head because he thought you broke a law. Maybe you did break a law. He may be holding it to your head because he thinks you're ugly. Maybe because he thinks that the law is a great law. Maybe he thinks it's a bad law, but he feels he's afraid to get fired. There are a million reasons why an individual will make that decision. Now, society does play a role in influencing individuals' decisions, but society is not to blame for the decisions the individual
Society
makes.
cannot make a decision. Only individuals can make decisions.
Right.
Society can influence things because each individual has influence on other individuals.
Right.
But society does not have a collective brain.
Right. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
No.
I mean, it quote unquote exists. It's there because
You have a collective drive. You have a societal goal, but
No.
you don't have a. You do.
No, there's no societal.
Oh, come on.
No.
What is it?
You guys
All
gotta
right,
take
Amy.
a look at okay, how are people's opinions molded? By and large, by media. Okay, like that's a much larger group collectively. It's not one individual saying this is how I cram my view down people's throat. And let's be honest, like the media is biased. I don't care what side you're on.
No,
At
absolutely.
some point, you have been unfairly marginalized.
Sure.
So, who runs the media? Well, come on. Like, really? Do we have to talk about this? There's a huge problem here, and it's who coerces public opinion. I look at, and you say you're part of the Republican Party, right? I could give a shit, okay? But when I watch videos of so-called Republicans who espouse their views knowing absolutely nothing about what they're talking about, it's like, really?
It's almost a requirement to be a politician and know nothing about
It's
what you're talking about.
ridiculous, man. Here's the thing that I see that bugs the hell out of me.
It's
is-
actually funny you say that because there was a CNN article about that today, and it was basically about the fact that to actually be a great politician, you need to have the shortest term memory known to man, because that way you can convince everybody else that they have short term memory too.
Romney.
The thing
Romney.
is, politicians are by and large people who have figured out that there is a place for my voice, and there's a place where if I'm in position, now my voice has power.
Right.
It's kind of dangerous.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Now the problem with our system is a Romney or an Obama can be painted in all sorts of ways by this system, which is the media, and then all of a sudden which is such bullshit. The media will say, "Oh my God, Romney totally stole the debate." Well, now the public opinion sways.
Right.
Oh, Romney must be the guy that we should elect. He won a stupid debate. Who gives a shit? What does Romney stand for? Now, I don't care whether you buy into Romney or not, but
Which is
do you
hysterical
know-
because 24 hours before that, he wasn't standing for what he stood for in the
That's
debate.
my
Right,
point.
yeah.
The whole system is off track on the basis of the society does elect a president.
That's just it. That's the big lie. The big lie that we that many of us have bought into is that we're doing some sort of collective action. There is no collective action. George Bush was not my president. Obama is not my president. Yeah. There is no guy there.
I think the important the important thing to realize is because with the
he's just a guy who other people will listen to.
You can't
and they will
live in
come
this
with
ethereal
guns.
world that goes, this guy just materialized. It was magic. Pixie fairies put him in the wind, and there he is. No, somebody freaking elected him.
Right, somebody.
You know what I mean?
Somebody.
And that somebody is a society.
No.
Even though it's an electoral college, and yes, we can go into semantics as to who actually voted for him and who didn't.
Let me make an analogy here. Which came first, society or individuals? Now, if you take a block, you take a block of society and then slice off bit by bit little pieces of individuals? Or do you take a lot of individuals and put them together to create what you call a society? The only thing that truly exists in this world are individuals. Now, society is, it depends on how you define it. And the way we're talking about it here, what we have going on one end is that society doesn't make decisions, which is true. Individuals make decisions. Now, a lot of individuals may make the same decision, which you may claim as, well, that's what society or this particular group that we've drawn a border or boundary around mentally or geographically has decided. And what Harry over here is saying is that society or a large group of individuals can be easily influenced through the media or through other manners. But I think we're having like two completely different discussions here. But the main point is that individuals make decisions, and individuals interact with other individuals and can influence other individuals' decisions. But should you be bound by the consequences of another person's decision that didn't? That's a bad way to answer that.
I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Let me give you a great example. Regardless of the fact that I'm a progressive, there are a lot of taxes that we pay that I don't want to.
Right.
We bought this house cash money, bought it out flat. I had to pay 3 different separate taxes that you don't have to pay whenever you actually buy a house when you mortgage it.
Right.
All right. I didn't like that. However, I had to pay an early penalty payoff. There were several different things that we had to do that are part of the law. Did I write it? No. Do I like it? Wait, let me finish.
Okay, I'll let you finish.
Let me finish. Do I like it? No. Do I understand that that is that law, and that as long as I'm a citizen of this country, I have to abide by it? Yes. Now, alternatively, there are things that you can do if you don't like a law. All right? I personally think that the whole freaking the campaign law, I can spend as much money. No, not campaign finance.
Citizens United?
Citizens United.
Okay.
Is the biggest piece of bullshit ever known to man. It was financed by the Koch brothers for one sole reason, and that is to get that black man out of office. Period.
Oh, come on. Stop trying to make it about race.
No.
It's not about race.
Regardless, it was to get that man out of office.
Right.
That is what Citizens United was about. That is a law. That is a law that our Constitution, that our Supreme Court said is constitutional. These are these people.
Right.
Do I like that law? No. If I don't like that law, I have to go about trying to convince my politician to change that law. Doesn't mean I'm not subject to it.
Okay. Subject, we can get into a philosophical debate about that. No, that's a good point. You paid certain taxes because it was law. Now, the question you have to ask is, why did you follow that law? Did you follow it out of
Because if I didn't, I wouldn't have got the house.
You would.
There you go.
And that's
There
it.
you go.
If
Now,
I didn't
why-
follow the law, I wouldn't have got the house.
Right.
So it was a voluntary action.
Why does anybody follow laws? Because if you don't pay your taxes, what happens? You have guns pulled to your house and you get thrown in a cage. I like to put this example out a lot about government. What is government? And we're still in philosophy, which I love. Let's say you bought a house in a new neighborhood, and some people come up to the door, the day after you bought it, and they knock on the door, and on their shirt, on one of them it says Soprano, right? And they say, "Thank you for coming into our neighborhood. We really appreciate you moving in here. We'd just like to let you know that this is our neighborhood, and if you want to live here, you're going to have to pay us a protection fee. You're going to have to pay us a certain amount of money each month, and we'll protect you from burglars and criminals and so forth. But if you don't pay us that, we're going to go throw you into our little warehouse down the street until you're ready to pay that. Now, of course, you would say, one, that's extortion, and what would you call those people? You call them the mafia. The mafia. Now, one detail I left out of the story, though, is that those three people, and the word soprano was actually on this nice little shiny star, and their suits were actually nice blue suits that they were wearing. What quantitatively is the difference between those individuals? When you're threatened to do something with
Because what you're
violence,
using is a non-governmental entity versus a governmental
what's the
entity.
difference?
The difference is that in that sense, I get where you're coming from.
Right.
However, our government, and don't get me wrong, they are not the all-powerful Oz. They do a lot of dumb shit. All right? In their power, they have decided that this is an entity that we needed to protect this, to produce that. What we really keep skating around the fact is there's two things in this country. There is the reality that we have a centralized government that it has one goal, is to collect revenue.
Absolutely.
Period. That's it. I'm sorry. You can disagree. You can not disagree. Our government's role is to collect revenue,
For the purposes of using it for
and they use it to create nation building, to create schools, to create roads,
to
whatever
pay
they
off
use it
whoever's
for.
politically connected.
Yeah, exactly. To kill,
Children in the Middle East, yeah.
that too. Or Big Bird.
Yeah. They've created them and then they
Their goal is to create revenue. That revenue trickles down and does different things,
Let-
right?
let-
Whether it's a police
Just
or
quickly
whether it's
interrupt. I would say not create, but collect.
collect. All
Okay.
right, I'll
They
give you
collect
collect.
revenue. Okay.
And regardless of who you put in power, and I mean that sincerely, if tomorrow Ron Paul was the president, and I mean that in all sincerity, as much as I would want to vomit, all right? If Ron Paul tomorrow was the president, what would really change? Not a damn thing.
Not immediately, no.
No, period, ever, period.
How so?
Because Ron Paul doesn't write laws.
The president-
Obama doesn't write
No,
laws.
you're
Thing,
incorrect
here's the
about that.
difference is because if
President
Ron
does
Paul
right.
was elected president, then a new agenda would actually get some media proliferation, and then perspectives might be able to change somewhat. Now, not immediately. I can't say when a guy says, I'm going to cut $1 trillion from the budget, he can't do that without congressional backing because they have to pass certain things.
No,
right?
y'all are both wrong. The president does write law. I mean, as
Executive
much
order.
as not even executive order. Like the most law nowadays is not a law saying the government has to do this. Most law nowadays is saying the president has the power to do blah, and Congress grants the president large blocks of power. This means the president can write the law however he wants. He has the power to write law.
Yeah, but that's not. the way
we got to differentiate between
That's
right law and
not
pass
the
law.
way it was set up. And in United, there's powers that a president can say, okay, I'm going to hold you, indefinitely, right? Well, like, let's all admit that's bullshit,
Right,
okay? And
absolutely.
those things are in place now, but that doesn't mean the president alone writes laws. That's not the process.
That's not true. I mean, to say that it's not true.
He does,
Can,
like,
can he have executive order? Yes. Does he have executive privilege? Yes. Does he have? But does he
Why
sit
is
there and
marijuana-
say
why is
your
marijuana-
tax code is this because I say so?
He can do
No,
that.
he doesn't do that.
Why do you think marijuana is illegal? Specifically.
Cotton industry?
Well,
No.
that's-
I mean,
Oh, bullshit.
Today, no, that's true. It's true.
It's
but
true.
Cotton industry.
It's true, but today.
No. Why is it illegal right now? Because the FDA has said was it class 1 or class 3? I forget which direction it goes.